I'm Ken Phelps. I'm the rector of All Saints Episcopal Church here in Sunderland, Maryland. A little bit about the church. We have been worshiping in this building for over 230 years. The present structure, which was completed in 1777. Prior to that, the congregation met in a log chapel, which was constructed in 1692, the year the church was established. So we have been a central part of the history of Calvert County for well over 300 years. In fact, the parish is looking forward to its 325th anniversary coming up in the year 2017. All Saints Parish holds the distinction of being the parish of the Reverend Thomas Claggett, who, while the 8th rector of All Saints, was the first bishop to be consecrated on American soil in 1792. And he did serve this church actually twice, once prior to the Revolutionary War and then once right after, leading up to his election as the Bishop of Maryland. It's been an interesting and rather unique history for All Saints. We were religiously the only game in town for about 150 years in the north end of the county. And many of the congregations in the area we consider to be our children of faith, who were born out of their roots with the All Saints Parish. There is a rich history both of not just the white planters who erected the church, but also the African Americans, both slaves and freedmen, who had a huge role to play in the construction of this building and in actually the building up of the community itself. The records of Bishop Whittingham, which I've had the distinct pleasure of reviewing in the diocesan archives, clearly show the marriages, the baptisms, the confirmations of many individuals who called this their spiritual home. Again, both black and white Native American who passed through these doors and became part of the history and heritage of not just All Saints Parish, but of Calvert County. There was some tension within the parish. The priests who had been trained in England, who were coming to serve in All Saints, were really in the Wilberforce trajectory of abolition. Their desire was to see the slaves converted to Christianity and also educated. The planters had other ideas. So there was a constant battle as to the rights of those who the planters considered to be property. In fact, members of All Saints were central to the enactment of such things as the Slavery Act of 1664, which actually establishes the races and establishes certain precedents for slavery. The priests, again, as I mentioned, with their desire to educate and convert the slaves, were met by a resistance which eventually produced a statute that said in so many terms that even though one is converted, they are still a slave, that slavery is for life. And really at the at the pleasure of the owner. Although we are also aware that within the congregation there were freedmen who were present, who were landowners in Calvert County and also called All Saints their home. In the late 18th century, the Methodist Church really springs out of the Episcopal Church. It was the Leather Lane meeting in, I believe, 1784, where the Methodist Church is established. And many of the families who had called All Saints their home began to drift away into the Methodist congregations, which is why, in a sense, we do consider ourselves to be the mothership for many of the congregations which surround us here in the north end of the county, both black and white. And the family names that you see as a part of their records also appear as part of ours. The names that they have in their cemeteries, those family names also appear outside our doors in the cemetery here as well. I think if you look back to the early history, in a sense, the church was the original shopping mall. It was the center of the community. Whether you attended regularly or not, there was a tax that you paid to the vestry, the parish tax. I believe here it was 40 pounds of tobacco each year that was due the church. You could pay more if you wanted one of the choice seats in the building, but 40 pounds of tobacco was the going rate. The building itself, speaking of tobacco, it was a tax of 200,000 pounds of tobacco that was levied on the parish that created this building in that 3-year period from 1774 to 1777. One of the more recent additions to our campus, the labyrinth itself is based on the labyrinth which is in the Cathedral of Chartres in France. If you want exercise, this is the place to get it, because to walk into the center of the labyrinth and to come back out, you will have covered 1/2 a mile. The labyrinth is 55 feet in diameter. So it's a good walk, and if done in the right spirit, a very beneficial walk, not just for the physical exercise, but for the emotional and spiritual high that also accompanies that journey. As times have changed, the church, of course, in its mission has changed. In the last 2 years, All Saints has launched 2 initiatives, the first being the project to reconcile our past, wherein we are beginning to reach out to our children congregations, if you will, to collect the stories of the families who have passed through here. We are pointing that toward our 325th anniversary celebration, which will come up in 2017. But more so, we're using this as a tool to engage with congregations that for decades we have felt separated from, whether by race or place or economic status. And we're hoping that in this project to reconcile our past, we will also find the key to opening up our present, and perhaps the key to evolving a more just and inclusive future for the county.